This video will briefly go through what communication competence is, which includes ethics. I particularly don't care for this phrase communication competence because I think we are competent at communication, but I would like to think of us as striving to be really great communicators. And so that's really what competence it means in this particular chapter, is really striving to be excellent. So maybe not take the word competence too literally, but we're defining it as effective communication that allows you to achieve your goals while maintaining or enhancing the relationship where it occurs. A lot of our communication can come across as negative or hurtful, but our goal is to keep the relationships that we have. So a couple of things that you want to keep in mind is there really is no ideal way to communicate. It can vary in different situations and scenarios. There's not a lot of rules when it comes to communication. Sometimes we need to look at different possibilities and make choices of what we think might be most effective. Competence is based on the situation, the relationship. You can learn to be a competent communicator, and we're going to be considering ethics in the way that we communicate. So really, competence is a combination of the knowledge that you're acquiring, and when we act on that knowledge, that's our skills. Our attitude, when we use those skills, we want to have good positive attitudes, and we're trying to maintain those relationships. So that's really where those all intersect in this diagram here on the right, where all those circles overlap, we have competence. So we have several characteristics of what we mean by competence. You're learning a lot of different behaviors or skills that you're going to choose from. Remember, I said in our first video, it's like a tool belt. You're acquiring skills. You're going to pick and choose depending on the situation, depending on who's involved, right? And so you are going to be empowered to make those choices. Our goal is to be able to choose the most appropriate skills and behaviors. So one of the things you're going to learn is, when do I want to use these skills that you're acquiring over the course of this semester? Skills take time and they take practice. Those of you that have ever played an instrument or a sport or were in any kind of performance, theater, dance, cheerleading, etc., those all require skills and it takes practice. Nobody is excellent when they first start out, and it feels awkward and uncomfortable. It takes time and effort and practice. So don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. You'll get better over time. We're going to learn to evaluate our perspectives and try to be more empathic or use empathy. We're going to develop cognitive complexity, which ties into perspective, allowing us to look at something in more than one way, not just our way. What are the other viewpoints here? You're going to learn how to think through yourself, your thoughts, what you say, how you say it, how you come across. So you're going to be monitoring your own self in your communication and your behaviors. And we want to consider the commitment to the relationship that you have with this person that you're communicating with. And all of these things really boil down to, and you may not remember all of them, but it really boils down to these two questions. Is what I'm trying to do, is it appropriate? And is it effective? If those are the only two questions you ask yourself for the rest of your life, I think you will be a better communicator. Is this appropriate? Is this effective? So that's the simple version of being a competent communicator and thinking through how you're communicating. Is it appropriate and effective? I'll use that multiple times this semester, so get familiar with it. So we have to consider ethics. We'll talk about this a little bit when we get to our public speaking unit, but ethics, a system of moral principles that govern the conduct of people in a relationship to others. And in communication or speech, really, the only law really we have freedom of speech in this country. It is protected. There are some parameters, but that's about it. And so the ethics sometimes could be a little bit gray. Plagiarizing, things like that are not appropriate. And so it is a little bit less clear when it comes to communication. You'll see ethic violations in different ways. Somebody lied on their resume, a coach at Notre Dame, and ended up being fired because they checked that out. Somebody plagiarized news stories, falsified expense accounts. Those would be considered unethical behaviors. But what happens is when you're engaging in unethical behavior, even in academically and in the classroom, your honesty, your values, and your integrity are then questioned. Right? Are you claiming other people's work without giving them credit? That's plagiarism. You're not being honest. Are you copying other people's work? You're cheating. We question your value system. If you're lying to us, right, we question your integrity. So it's a reflection of your character. And so that's something to keep in mind. We do want to try to be appropriate and effective the best that we know how. And that's the simplest way to think about ethics and competency in communication. Am I being appropriate and effective? I do have some tips on social media and a couple of things on technology to take a look at. We have a lot of technology, which is great, and then sometimes it is a pain. Of course, don't forget we have tech support to help you if you have any technical issues in Blackboard or with Launchpad. You would call Macmillan. Use tech support. I only know so much. I am not hired as a tech support person. Okay, so use your resources. But when we communicate through technology, there's a couple of different ways, and these tie in directly to our communication in our classes, face-to-face class versus online classes. We talk about message richness. When it's face-to-face, we have the nonverbal and the verbal. It's easier to process and maybe understand one another. Synchronicity, or you might have heard asynchronous as well. Synchronous courses, for example, require you to be online at a particular time, like for a Zoom meeting or Blackboard Collaborate. Asynchronous means you can do the work, the class, anytime you want. Of course, there's due dates, but asynchronous, it's not live. There's a delay in the communication. And so in our class, we are asynchronous. My office hours, I respond to emails and texts very regularly, so that's asynchronous. But I do offer live office hours, which would be synchronous. But we also want to consider the permanence. When you use technology, there's a permanent record. Even if things get deleted, there are ways to find it. So there's a permanent record of the things that you post. And employers do look at your social media, even if it's marked private. And I know people have not been hired because of their social media posts. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a dozen or so students that applied to Harvard University. They were accepted, and a month or two later, they had posted some inappropriate things on social media that did not coincide with Harvard's ideals and values, and all of them their admissions were rescinded, and they never did get to go to Harvard because of their social media posts. We tend to hide behind social media. Escaping through social media or technology sometimes is great, right? We need to get sidetracked. We need to play some video games to get our minds off of something, right? Just like we sometimes need to go out for a run or go golf to clear our heads, have a little downtime, right? But when you hide behind it, you think that you're invincible. And so that we are more bold in what we say and are often not so appropriate nor effective in our communication. And so I have a few tips on using social media. Think before you post. Is it true? Is it helpful? Inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Right? Think through the medium that you use. Be careful of what you post. Keep your tone civil. No bashing. We don't have lots of good examples of that. We have a movement in our country to not hear the other person out. If we disagree with them, we bash them, we hate them, we silence them. That is not okay in my book. We want to learn how to be effective communicators. You want to learn how to have your voice heard in an effective way, in a way that works. Watch out for your privacy, right? Be careful of other people you might be mentioning in your post. But let's really work to be kind. I want this class to be fun. When you're in discussion boards, use emojis. If you want to post images, things like that, I am fine with that as long as we're being appropriate and effective. Keep a civil tone. We want to be kind, encouraging. I am grading all communication in this class. So if you are being unkind, if you are being rude, or we're perceiving it as rude, one, I will let you know, but two, I'm grading that. So don't do that. Be careful. We have lots of different misconceptions in communication. I have a few of them listed here. And I give you a couple of food for thought questions here at the very end. So you can come back to check out the PowerPoint, think through some of this, but I would like for you to think about what areas do you want to work on? Where do you want to become more comfortable in your communication? You can let me know in discussion boards or send me an email, and I'm happy to try to help you. My goal is to help you become a great communicator.